Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Mirror Podcast. This is your host, Alvin Fadhili, and next to me is the other host, and we're here today to talk about pathologization. Pathologization. Yeah, it's quite a mouthful, but you shall bear with me. And Anthony Maina, tell
Yes,
us
sir.
one or two, three things before we start.
Before we begin, I'd like to shout out a friend of mine called Nicholas on his recent book launch that happened at USIU Africa on Saturday. I think it was on the previous Saturday. I will link a copy for every one of you on the video description below for you to check out his great works. He's a good friend of mine, a poet, and a football player as well. I have had very many interactions with him, a very good guy, and I'd vouch for him any day. Apart from that, I hope y'all are well, and let's get into it.
Very nice, very nice, very nice. So, guys, you might ask, what is pathologization? Yeah, pathologization is basically how human beings turn each experience or behavior into a mental issue or a disease or something to be concerned about, like health-wise. Yeah, and we shall dig deep into it by looking at how uh, we turn normal things into abnormal. And here, kindly, this is actually really educative. This is actually statistics. This is data collected from actual what is the book called, DSM-5, the DSM-5 that is used by psychologists to analyze and criteria put mental illnesses into criterias. Yeah. So DSM-5 is a book. Copy. Mesao meaning ya DSM-5. Diagnostics and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Aya. To all those psychology students listening, hiyo kitabu mnafaa kuwa best friends nayo. But anyway, yeah. So as we start, we shall start by again distinguish between a diagnosis which is done. Oh wait, let me give you another meaning for pathologization. Pathologization is behavior, emotion, or thought patterns that are categorized or labeled as mental disorders or abnormal conditions. Yeah, so basically from normal to abnormal.
So
So
it's not that they are; it's that they're being labeled as.
yes. So
Right.
what is a diagnosis? A diagnosis Jehovah, kwani nilisahau kuongea. A diagnosis is identified as a specific disorder or treatment, while pathologization is just something you tell yourself you have that does not really have any symptoms, characteristics that would be characterized as a disorder or a mental illness. So,
Self-diagnosis.
yeah, self-diagnosis most of the time, and does not go in line with the clinical characteristics or clinical diagnosis made for that specific disorder or that specific illness. Yeah. And as you can see, I'm reading a lot because this is data that I have collected. Yeah, it's not just stories. So examples of pathologization: shyness being termed as social anxiety, sadness being termed as depressive disorders. These depressive disorders are quite a number, yeah. And if you would like to know more about them, kindly research. Uh, Other things are introverts being labeled as people who like being with themselves are introverts. Being introverted is not any kind of issue. It's not a mental illness. It's not um, a neurodevelopmental issue. Being introverted is just a state of being. It's just a characteristic. And being an introvert is you liking your own space, just enjoying being alone, enjoying being in your own environment without affecting anyone else around you. Yeah. And people throw around the word introverted, throw around very, like, a lot. Yeah. And there's a difference between being introverted, extroverted, and there's another one they created called ambivert. An ambivert is one who is able to
Mix and match the in
mingle
between.
between the two. Yeah. And those are there are 3 different categories, and kindly learn more about them because I don't have enough time to expound on everything. Yeah. Another thing is body types, like you saying, oh, I was born like this, oh, I'm just obese, oh, I'm just too slim, oh, I'm just petite, obese. Which other one do they use? Thick. uh those categories of words that people use to describe body types. Most people take it to the extent where they say that it's now their character, it's now who they are. But your body can't change. Body changes every single day. So you can't say you are always going to be thick, or you're always going to be obese, or you're always going to be heavy bodied, or you're always going to be a person or like with a lot of fat. Or you can't also say that you're always going to be petite, or you're always going to be thin, you're always going to be slim. Yeah. These are things that are biological, things that are influenced by your metabolism, influenced by your characteristics, your eating habits, your eating habits. There are also eating disorders. A lot of they're like 4 or 5 major eating disorders, and people mistake or misdiagnose themselves with eating disorders when they do not have them. Eating disorders are very serious things, by the way. And if you feel like you actually have an eating disorder, kindly seek I don't know, professional help. Kindly.
I think the issue we need to ask ourselves is why is self-diagnosis becoming more and more common in society?
Because now people create labels for everything.
So people just decided to give themselves diseases.
Yeah. Now everything has a label.
Sometimes you wonder, are we really the most apex predators?
We are not.
Like, it's you self-diagnose yourself with a disease willingly, and you stick to it, and it affects you, and it affects the way you operate, the way you behave, the way you talk to people, and it's kind of counterproductive if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because you can imagine, I'm facing, let's say, a patch of sadness in life, because life has ups and downs.
Yes.
Not every day will I be happy.
Of course.
So I face a patch of sadness, and then all of a sudden I'm labeling myself as depressed. And then everyone around me, I'm telling them how depressed I am and how I have a billion and one issues. That everyone has issues, to be fair.
Yeah.
Sadness is something that occurs more commonly than people think.
Mm-hmm.
So that little bit of sadness that has been put there by whoever put it there, God or whoever is up above, greater than us, has its own purpose, has its own meaning, it's there for a season in life.
Yeah.
So you labeling it as depression, for you to, I don't know, people do it for very many reasons. Some people do it to feel good about themselves, which is funny that you should put blame on yourself to then come and justify it. Then you're in a mix-up where you're constantly having to tell people why you're depressed.
Yeah.
And yet, if you were actually depressed, clinically it can be very easily proven. So I think,
yeah, it's debatable because the types of different mood disorders. Depression is a mood disorder, and there are different levels of mood disorders, and there are different stages. Yeah, there's depression that goes on for a long time. There's a depression that comes during seasons, like different seasons in terms of weather. There's there's depression that comes in when you have a sudden change in environment and things.
Mhm.
So there's depression for different things,
Mhm.
and someone can only be categorized with depression once they have been in that state for at least 3 months.
Not you wake up tomorrow and then I'm
Yeah,
depressed.
you can't be there for 3 days and then you're saying you're depressed. You're just sad. And I'm not trying to undermine anyone's feelings,
Mhm.
but saying you're depressed is something really big.
Mhm.
Depression is a serious thing that a lot of people suffer,
Mhm.
and it's very important to properly categorize what you're feeling. Being sad does not mean you're depressed. Emotions change. The thing about emotions is that every single emotion requires to be felt equally.
Mhm.
How happy you will ever get should be the same way how sad you will ever get. Every single emotion should be felt equally. There is no predisposition to one emotion or against the other. Once you feel that you're happy all the time, you have a problem. Once you feel that you're sad all the time, you have a problem. Once you feel like you're angry all the time, you have a problem. Your emotions are meant to be felt the same way because the responses in your body are just two. They're just two. Hakuna response to anger. There's no response to happiness. There's no response to sadness. There's no response to disgust. They're just the influence of what our brain has been taught to learn as sadness, as anger, as confusion. Those are the things we determine. So the responses is that you will be affected first. Something will come at you, something you'll experience something. How you respond to it is your brain takes in that information, whether it's stimuli through visuals, whatever kind of stimuli you receive, your brain will receive it. That's the first response, taking in the information. The second response is taking it out. So your brain will read it and interpret, and how you have conditioned your brain to think or to work is how it's going to actually take it out. So, for example, we can be talking here, and then someone walks in,
Mhm.
and we're in the middle of recording, right? And they come and then they just create uproar, like they don't care if we're recording or not. Yeah,
Mhm.
we'll take in that information. How we process it is different between you and me.
Mhm.
You can choose to actually look at this person and be like, yeah, how can we help you? And we ask them, what is it you're looking for? What is it you want from here that you would like us to help with?
Mhm.
And of course, that's your response. And you act in a calm and reasonable manner,
Mhm.
despite the fact that someone is being very unreasonable. Sorry.
Unreasonable. Mhm.
Yeah. And I, on the other hand, can see someone do that and also create chaos.
Choose to smack the shit out of
Yeah. I become angry. I also start beating up this guy. So those are the
I
responses.
will be there, WWE commentator Anthony Maina, making sure that it is a fair fight. I can assure you.
Yeah. So as we now get
Back to topic.
and no, we're still on topic, but now get deeper into it.
Mm-hmm.
What affects pathologization, or what influences pathologization? So the first thing is, first of all, we look at the actual categorization of mental illnesses and mental neurodevelopmental issues. Neurodevelopmental issues are the ones that you're born with.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you're born with, but it just triggers. But anyway, yeah. So there's a difference between mental illnesses and neurodevelopmental issues. Look it up. So what I referred to at the beginning, the DSM, the current one is called DSM-5, and it's the Diagnostics and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Yeah, it's created by the American Psychiatric Association that categorizes and defines mental disorders. Yeah, first published in 1952 and everything. The impact of DSM is both clinical and practice and public perception by that's a whole different thing. So the DSM-5 is used both clinically by psychiatrists, publicly by people of every kind, because it's a book that you can acquire anywhere, and also it's used by psychologists who are not psychiatrists. Psychiatrists are doctors. Psychologists are counselors, therapists, those other things. Yeah, they work now in a social setting, not in a medical setting. The practice is now where you come and define from the DSM-5. DSM-5 is the most current one. Yeah, what normal is and what abnormal is. Yeah, so what is considered normal is really socially bound. That's what I can say. According to the DSM-5, what is considered normal is based on the social setting.
So based off of like the group of people you're interacting with, that's what defines what normal is.
Exactly.
So if you're in a group of psychopaths, that's
normal. Yes. So like, let's say, for example, there are African countries who are totally okay with traditional dances where the people are not fully dressed. And it's normal. Very, very normal. However, if you are to transfer these people from their society, from their environment, and take them to a different environment, let's say some European Western country, that would be seen as very odd. That would be seen as very different.
Because they don't fit in with the status quo.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So that's what clarifies normal, So if we as the people in our environment, in our society, find something normal, then it is deemed normal. Once we find something abnormal, then it is deemed abnormal.
So this normality and abnormality is determined by who is like a part of this society.
Yes.
So it's like a majority wins kind of thing.
Yeah. So most of the time it's usually the people around that clarify whether something is normal or abnormal. Let me give an example. Okay, another example. So you can go to a mental hospital, you will find people of different issues. People who are have schizophrenia, people with depression, people every kind of mental illness. You as the normal person, you cannot live in that environment properly. So if you have no mental illness at all, you cannot fit in that community, because you will feel like you are indifferent from them. And this is the same way the Psychiatrists Association chose to clarify or to categorize normal from abnormal. So I'm sitting here, we're talking in English. Someone walks in, they don't speak English. They will find that abnormal.
Or like whoever's watching now.
Yeah.
If we understand, we might find it normal. But maybe someone who's watching does not understand the language they'll speak.
Yep.
So that becomes abnormal to that
them.
person.
Yes.
Right.
However, there are some things that beat both the normalcy of the society you're in and they fit in. Like in every situation, it would be deemed abnormal. Like no matter the society that you're in, there's something that can be deemed abnormal. And that is why it's important now, as a psychologist or as a psychiatrist out there, it's important for someone to actually ask, this thing that you're doing in your society, is it normal? Because that's one of the ways of putting a diagnosis onto someone. You ask them, whatever you're doing, however you are reacting, is it normal? Do you always act like this? Do you always behave like this at home? So if they do, you cannot deem it abnormal.
So that's their normal pattern of behavior, that is normal to them.
That is normal.
And so that is okay, apparently.
Yes, it is. Not apparently, it is okay, because we are social creatures. We are the ones who determine what is okay and what is not okay. There is no book where it's written
This
by
is
law,
oh.
this is how we're supposed to behave.
But even law is determined by
Exactly.
people. So
Yes. So it's always about the environment you're in, how you behave around people. As we move on, let's touch up on social media and the influence it has. And not only social media, the public interactions, public places, public influence. Yeah. So first of all, there's been an uproar of people saying the way they're depressed, the way they have eating disorders, they have anxiety, all those different categories of issues. Yeah, on social media, there are actually people who are openly coming out about the things that they're suffering from. Yeah. And it's important to acknowledge that social media is a platform to help you release. However, there are also people out here who are taking advantage of this.
so then it loses like point. So it becomes a
Yes.
trend, and then
Yes,
people are just identifying with certain diseases just to fit in with the trend
exactly.
or the moment.
Exactly. So this is where pathologization comes in. It's not about the fact that you have that disease or you have that issue. It's that you are categorizing yourself in that criteria. Like you're saying, oh, Kai, today I woke up, I'm sad. Oh, and then I wake up tomorrow morning, I'm also sad. You wake up the following day, I'm also sad. Oh my God, I'm depressed. You might be depressed actually if you have the symptoms of depression. However, you can also be just sad. Can be that there's something in your life that's making you sad, and progressive sadness is okay, and unless it exceeds a month and you're not in mourning.
So it might be that you're experiencing a very
Prolonged sadness.
no, now to bring it like out of this case of sadness,
Yeah.
it might be that you're experiencing just a normal emotion, because sadness is quite normal,
Yes.
or anger is quite normal, or happiness is quite normal,
Yes.
except for when you said the prolonged periods, but you've chosen to label it as this. So I think we need to advise our people out there, our listeners, and everyone who will get to interact with this piece of content, wherever it will be, to not want to quickly label things.
Yes.
I think we're also in a society where we just want to label things for some apparently unknown reason. You feel sad, kidogo, I'm depressed. You might just be sad and that's it. Like, it's normal. No one has told you to be in a rush to label yourself as, oh, I'm suffering from this and this and this. Maybe you're just facing a rough patch in life.
Yeah.
Or maybe you've changed the environment and you're adapting, because adaptations actually do happen and emotions tend to switch a lot during adaptations. So find yourself and judge yourself according to what you know, not what you've seen on the internet and decided to label yourself as. Be very slow to label things and quick to understand yourself. We've talked about self-analysis and self-awareness and how you should self-question before you come to certain conclusions, because as you've said, depression is a very serious thing, or most mental illnesses that people are throwing around carelessly on social media and may or may not even be diagnosed with them. You might find someone's living a quite perfect life, but when you come on social media, you suddenly become a frowning, sad, gloomy person just for the sake of people's approval. So find it within yourself to be a very genuine person, one with yourself and with others. And I think that will help us tackle this problem a lot more.
Definitely. So, as we continue, cultural influences that affect us. Yeah. So, I'll speak of our culture as Africans and specifically in Kenya. And specifically, I'll touch on two different things. Yeah. How men were treated before and how women were treated before.
Right.
Yeah. So, men were supposed to be the providers, men were supposed to be the head of the house, headstrong, no worry, no stress at all, yeah? And women were supposed to be providers. In some cases, were not supposed to speak unless spoken to. In some cases, were not supposed to behave in certain ways. In some cases, to an extreme, children or like females who lived in a household where the man was, or where a man was, had to leave when they got their periods. You had to go and stay somewhere else and then come back after your periods are over. That's a whole different other thing. So I'll not touch into that. That was just an example. In that case, men were stoic. They did not show so much feeling. They did not show so much emotion. Because as a man, you were not supposed to be emotional. You were supposed to be goal oriented. You're supposed to be logical. You're supposed to be able to work on things and deal with them quick, fast. Yeah? You're supposed to be able to provide quick, fast. No in between, no story nyingi nyingi. And women were supposed to be parents. They're supposed to care for the children. They're supposed to be very motherly. Supposed to be extremely submissive. Yeah? And that has changed. The times have really changed. Yeah? And these days, you'll find a lot of women chasing feminism. Yeah? And feminism is a whole other thing. I'm not going to touch it here. But yeah, so they're chasing feminism. And men are unable to cope properly with feminism most of the time. Why? Because we now think that, not we like here, but a lot of guys out there think that now that a woman has been given power, she wants to abuse it. She wants to misuse it. She wants to feel like she owns the world. Some women may be feeling like that, some women may not. But the change that has occurred through the past, let's say 50 years, has really changed a lot. Has really changed a lot of things, a lot of ways that we think, a lot of words we use, how we behave. Because right now, we're given an example in class. Right now, it would be an insult when you're creating a committee or a board and you give the lady in the group the work of the secretary. That one can create a lot of uproar. Why? Because the secretarial job has always been known as a feminine job. But now, there is no job that is labeled for men and there's no job that is labeled for women. So by putting a woman in such a category, some might feel like they're being oppressed and others might be okay with it. Yeah? With a change in times and in the current day and age, we have been influenced by a lot of cultural changes, yeah? And the example I've just given is to show that a lot of women will now be overly independent. Overly, like in the sense that they will never accept any kind of help from a man. Because now you feel like, oh, now this person will think like they own me, or they have the ability to control what I have to do and say. And this is caused by a lot of baggage that is not yours. You're carrying a lot of weight that's not yours, yeah?
Mm.
And people like this end up identifying themselves with certain disorders. I don't want to start clarifying because, I'm trying to beat the point of clarifying disorders without diagnosis, yeah?
To beat the point of pathologization as a whole.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, and guys, guys, we've been named as what's this word? What is this word? When a lot of ladies break up with a guy, they start calling him.
A lot of ladies.
I am forgetting
I
that.
don't know.
I am forgetting that word. He's Hey, yeah. Forgotten. Nitakumbuka in the
Let me
process.
run a few words that men have been called in recent society for you to
Yeah.
maybe remember.
Utasema in the first three,
Misogynistic,
Uh-huh.
dogs,
No.
controlling.
There's a form of now from that controlling. There's another one that
Oppressive.
not oppressing. Misogynistic is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one
Abusive.
where a guy thinks it's like the world revolves around him. What's the word for that thing?
Self-centered.
No, there's another one.
But it's something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yes, we have the internet. Why not?
Bana ndo nashanga.
Why not find out?
Guy. Why am I forgetting this word? And it's like it's here, but it's not a verbalization.
So as he looks for that, I think we can cover a few consequences of this identification of people and mental health diseases, where someone just decides, you know what, I am depressed. So for individuals, you have stigma and identity. This may cause you to negatively self-image yourself, which affects your mental health, your self-esteem, it has come.
Narcissistic.
But wait, hold that thought. I was talking about how people negatively self-image themselves and how it might negatively affect you.
Yeah.
You also, it's like you create a self-fulfilling prophecy for yourself. Funnily enough, what you speak on yourself tends to materialize a lot of the time. So if you keep calling yourself depressed, do not be shocked. The universe is listening and it might just decide to give you what you want, and then now shit goes south and now you're actually depressed, and now you have so many problems that you don't know where they came from, and your life has become a bittersweet endeavor. There's also the over-medicalization that happens to anyone who's diagnosed with mental health diseases, which is as a result of capitalism. To break it short, so that I don't dive deep into how pharmaceutical companies have been influencing a lot of the choices you've made in your life. For society, it shifts societal expectations. Right now, as he was saying, talking about normal, right now people are considering mentally ill people normal, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because it allows more people to identify with it, but which is a bad thing in terms of like the trends, but a good thing in terms of the mental health aspect being spotlighted and made something important and made something that has been more and more considered over the years.
Yeah.
So there's an interest in society for mental health. There's interest in betterment of mental health. There's interest in people's mental health in general, and it has come to be something that has been considered more and more.
Yeah.
So it has both good and bad. There is also erosion for tolerance and diverse behaviors, making society less inclusive, which is funny because we are apparently moving into a more inclusive society, which I would argue is counterproductive, but that is due to my prejudice to inclusivity as a whole. There's also resource strain where healthcare systems are stretched thin
Just finish.
due to inflated mental concerns, which partly happen because people are deciding to self-diagnose themselves. So you self-diagnose and then you go to your doctor and then you tell them, I am depressed, give me drugs. You don't expect him to not want to feed his family. So him sells drugs. So you become an overly drugged human being, and this stretches the medical line for people who are actually medically depressed or diagnosed as depressed, and there's less for them. So it's like a very selfish back and forth, you see. So try to avoid that.
Yeah. But here on medicalization, it's the way pharmaceutical companies are taking over the industry by making themselves look powerful and saviors of the world, which they're not. But also, it's where you self-diagnose and fully believe that you are you're what you say you are. And for some people, it gets to an extreme where they actually take medication over and over and over again.
Right.
They're self medicating, and they're medicating themselves on drugs that are meant for people with actual mental disorders, yet you have none. And this actually affects them. It actually causes a lot of illnesses
And side effects.
and side effects that you might end up having another uh, issue. I don't want to call it a mental disorder because it really develops into a mental issue. But you now get dependency, you get
Withdrawals, you get addictions to those drugs.
yes,
You apparently, for it is very common for people who are on those kinds of drugs to even behave irrationally when they are not, and them being okay with behaving irrationally, and then they'll quite literally just tell you, I haven't taken my medication, that's why I'm behaving this way.
yeah. And now to get back to what I was saying about culture, we are now being termed as narcissistic as men. Like,
Right.
someone will break your heart. Oh, they were narcissistic. They never cared about me. Or they were just using me. And some, in situations that there are some men who are narcissistic, who are narcissist in literal sense. But most of the time, you actually just dealing with someone who does not know how to properly express themselves, and they do not know how to feel the right way. Because we're in a society where, as men, we are improving on in terms of emotions and feeling, but we've been in a situation where we are not allowed to feel, we are not allowed to express, we are not allowed to show emotion. So it's very difficult to actually want a man to show emotion to you, yet it's something they have not really known.
You talked about stoicism,
Yeah.
or the word stoic,
Yeah.
which is, I would classify it as means to pathologization to some extent,
Yes.
because even the word stoic has in modern day society been tampered with a lot.
Of course.
If you look at the original stoicism, came from I'm really forgetting his name. It's some guy who was actually very wealthy, and then he lost his wealth at sea, and then he landed on shore, and now created the whole concept of stoicism. So then modern day stoicism is apparently you should shut out all your emotions and, as you were saying, become goal driven and what and what and what. So the normal that you were saying that is based on the group of individuals that are there has affected the meaning of stoicism. Stoicism from back then and stoicism
Right
from now
are two
have,
different things.
yeah,
Yes.
it has the original meaning has devolved from the what it was originally. So before you mention such words, even for you, I think you need to look at what it has been, because it clicked in my mind, because I have looked at the history of how it started, because it was this rich guy who lost everything, and then he created this ideology to help him cope, one, with the loss of most of his wealth,
Yeah.
and help him survive. And it wasn't really this modern day stoicism that lock everything and become this.
But you know, the thing about words is what they evolve, because
Yeah.
they're created
I
by
agree.
man.
I
Yeah.
agree.
So the evolution of some words are based on the kind of changes and acceptance that we take in as a society. Yeah.
Right.
And as we proceed, I can see our time is diddimiating.
We can actually do a two-part for this topic, because it appears that there is more content than we can possibly do in one episode.
That is smart. You are a genius. Now, as we finish up, yeah. Let's touch on normality, yeah. So the concept of normality is very
Shaky.
yes, shaky and also adjustable. Yeah. Normalcy changes with time. Normalcy changes with the situation. Normalcy changes with the society or the conditions that are within your setup. And to be honest, the kind of normalcy we are adapting as a society right now is it digressive? That's a word, yeah.
Okay, it's digressing from.
Yes, it's digressive. Yeah?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I was looking for. Digressive. It's digressive. It's not growing us. We're just continuously accepting everything and everyone as they are. Quote unquote. I was born like that. You weren't really born like that. A lot of things are influenced by how you grow, how you develop, the things that are within the first 15 years of your life really affect a lot. So when you say you are born like that,
You don't even know how you were born.
exactly.
For crying out loud. You mentioned something about not having logical thought or having identity before 7 years.
Yes.
So you can't say you were born like that. You didn't even know who you are.
There's no individual with reasonable thought or ability to make sound judgment before 7 years. But
So-
but it's also changing, actually. This is statistics that I have read from a while back, yeah. Between I don't know if it has been changed, but the one I read was published 208 to that time, yeah. And right now, there are kids who are really sharp. They're very sharp. I think it has been adapted and it has changed with time, and now it might be lower. But if you are above the age of 7 right now, you developed your ability to think, or let's say above the age of 14, yeah, you develop the ability to think soundly with your own mind and your own identity at 7 onwards. Before that, you are just a shell, and that's when you started thinking soundly, but you've not developed your sound thinking fully until now. You get to 25. Now that shell has now been filled with content, but it's not fully filled. But yeah, so normalcy, we are normalizing a lot of things, some that are good, some that are bad. So pathologization is more leaning to the negative normalcy, yeah, where we are normalizing people's self-diagnosis and choosing to accept them the way they are, even though it's something that can be changed. When you say something is the way it is, it's usually, most of the time, is not. There are some cases that are, but there are other cases where these things are things that we have made normal, that we have caused to change, or we have caused to make them look like we are actually, quote unquote, like that. They have been influenced by culture, society, media, parents. Like, there are so many things that are really affecting.
I have a few points on how we can counter this thing.
Yeah.
I think once you're done on the effects and what you're talking about right now and normalcy, I can give like three main points and then we close it off.
How to now counter this pathologization, yeah? Hey. Ah, la la la. I've seen something very controversial there. Let me touch. Before we go to how to counter it, there's one thing that I've seen that is very important. Erosion of self-identification. We are now self-identifying with norms,
with the masses,
with a lot of things,
trends.
And now I'll have to touch on the thing that I've seen that is controversial. The rainbow community.
Well.
So,
cancellation near imminent.
You have seen the change in demeanor in both of us. We have sat upright because this is something we are going to war, but it's not war.
Oh my God.
So, rainbow community is basically the LGBTQ community.
What is the plus for, by the way? Is it like
there are others. There are very many others.
There was a premium version.
It's a premium version as well. It's, yeah. But anyway, so for the... let me call... if it's inappropriate for you, goddamn, I'm sorry. But I'm just going to call you the rainbow community because LGBTQ is...
No, we need to find a new word.
It's
rainbows were a good thing when I was a child.
Man... But
why are you stealing rainbows? Go find your thing and label it whatever you want.
Times do change. But yeah, so self-identification, yeah. I have seen a lot of cases where children self-identify with the norms that they see on TV, especially the shows these days. Kindly, if you're planning to work in a production company, please don't expose this to children. It's not fair to them, especially children who are unable to think for themselves. It's not fair to them. There should be a neutrality to everything when it comes to children. Because you're exposing children to things that they don't understand, they cannot fathom. You end up making a child at a very young age. This is a case that is actually real. A case at a child at a young age doubt themselves. Look at another. This is real. I'm not creating this story. A child, age was he 7, 8 there. He was looking at his male friends, and he was seeing new interest, yeah, finding them very attractive. And this kid is now, I think, 19, yeah. And he was telling this story because it was heavy. It was really, really heavy. It's where he used to find them very, very attractive. Like, he's like, God damn, like, I want to get closer to this guy. He got to a point where when he was 11, he identified himself as homosexual. He was attracted to other men. However, as he progressed, it only got worse. Even after identifying himself as a homosexual, his craving for men was just increasing. It was just like it was really drowning him. And he thought maybe because he's like this, it's not that he is attracted to men, it's that he's trapped in a man's body. So what did he begin with? He thought he was homosexual at first. Then by the time he was about 15, 16, he wanted to become transgender because he thought identifying as a woman was what he was.
Or it would at least give him freedom.
Not give him freedom. He was like, wait, like, he felt like he was having too many emotions, and he felt like he was, I don't know, made a woman because he was quite chubby. And I said this in another episode that the way you grow changes. Like, baby fat, your teenage years, you will be big, and then you'll just later on change and become the figure that you want, or work on the figure that you want, yeah. But this kid had, let's call them man boobs, yeah. And he told himself, now that I have this, I'm supposed to be a woman. He proceeded to start taking hormonal inhibitors, and these are the ones. There are the other pills that you take for them to change. Now, they inhibit some inhibit the testosterone levels in your body, and then there's the other ones that now increase the other levels, progesterone, those other ones for mostly that one that are majorly in women. And he did that for 3 years. So by the time he was 19, and he actually went for therapy because nothing was changing, they actually found out that this kid was freaking straight.
So you're telling me that this kid was indoctrinated into thinking he was...
For nearly 9 years.
Right. So let me touch on something very controversial called Cocomelon.
Now that's where that was heading, yeah? You can tell your story after I've gotten there.
Okay.
So let me just, 1 second, yeah?
No worries.
So, for those 9 years, there was one show. They refused to tell us what show it was. There was one show that he's watched since he was about 3-4 years, yeah? And he was obsessed with that show. Like, he never stopped watching that show. The show actually was quite long, surprisingly, yeah? He watched every single new season until he was about 15, 16, and then it ended. And then he started looking for shows that were similar to that one. And that show had children, like kids, who are confused about their identity. And they had parents who are, quote unquote, part of the rainbow community. And honestly, this kid had lost a solid 9 years of their lives being troubled. Actually, so in 2024. So this kid was 19 about 4 years ago.
2020.
Yeah, because I read it during COVID. Yes, no, yeah. So they were 19 in 2020. So they had experienced a lot of influence based on this one thing. And they self identified with being homosexual at first. And then they realized that homosexuality was not what they were. Now they self identified with being transgender, and they actually put themselves. And the thing about being in most of the Western countries is that these things they're not big issues.
See, I
Like
was
kids,
recently telling you a child can change gender before they can drive a car.
where
In the USA, you can go for a
Okay.
gender transplant.
No, you can't do any intrusive surgery until you're 18.
Oh,
Yeah,
at least.
but you can't take inhibitors. You can't take the pills that.
That's controversial.
Yeah.
That is very controversial.
Yeah, so it's crazy. And honestly, this kid, I read this story and I was in shock. I was like, God damn, what the yeah. Because 9 years is not a lot, is not a short time. Like 9 years is not a short time. You losing your identity for 9 years is not a joke. So the process of self-identification has been influenced and has been changed over a long period of time. And it's a big issue now that we have social media and shows and a lot of
TV,
media
films.
that we are taking in is very influential in the kind of let's say habits and behavior that we develop, especially as children. Now to Cocomelon as we finish up.
Let me even leave Cocomelon out of it. So, in film school that I attend to, apparently these people think I don't pay attention in class. Even me, today I have something to say. So, during the World Wars, the government and the countries that were superpowers at that time, talk about Germany, Britain, USA.
Yeah.
That was when film was being introduced into society.
Yeah.
So film at that time was being used to create certain narratives to either oppress your enemy or upraise your country's standards or think you're doing better in war or think you're doing worse. Something like that. So it has been happening since back then. And I think it's the society right now is trying to address it. And as you've said, it's very sad to see that someone lost 9 years of their life in an identity crisis just because they were indoctrinated into not being sure of who they are or what their agenda is. And I think this leads me to my points that I was to talk about. One is critical thinking. Although self-identification may be a bit more difficult when the issue of identity is brought up, critical thinking and identity, there's like a very gray area between the two.
Yeah.
You can't really critically think if your identity is not in check. So I think also the way you're raised matters.
Definitely.
Right? The way what normal was to your family matters.
Yeah.
To the space you grew up in.
Yes.
And my next point, avoid overly identifying with trends on social media. Overly identifying with what your favorite celebrities are doing or saying or coming up with. Because you never know. It might be a marketing ploy and then you just get caught up in the mix. Also, be very aware that the things you love, especially social media and movies, for those of you who tend to indulge a lot in those things, the people creating them have motives, right? the people creating them have agendas to push. Some of them have ulterior motives that may be very bad for you or may lead you to lose 9 years of your life finding out if you're okay with yourself. So be very cautious of what you consume and be very aware of what you're consuming, because it's right now it's being put in a way that your conscious mind can't really see it, right? Or it's been put in kids' shoes where you like, even you as a parent, when you're walking by it, like nothing's really striking you. Ama they put it in funny looking characters that are kids and do dumb shit, so you can't really see it, but then it seeps onto your subconscious mind, which is a vast land of brilliance that God put in our heads. So be very aware of what you're watching. Put yourself in positive situations and look after your mental health. I am done. Now all that is remaining is for me to close off.
So, last thing, be very aware of the content you take in, like Anthony said. And it's very important to be psychologically aware of how things affect you. So kindly note that there are a lot of things that might happen in your life that are not as serious as you put them. One thing is, everyone goes through shit. Everyone goes through shit.
Shit is a constant.
Yeah. And that shit does not change who you are. Just, if it breaks you, you break and become someone stronger. If it builds you, still become stronger. There's no room to give up, by the way. If you give up, who's going to fight for you? But anyway, all I can say is pathologization is something we need to kind of do away with, sorry. Yeah, and we need to slowly be more intentional about how we feel about how things happen to us, and be very aware about how things affect us. So with that, we shall also link the DSM-5 manual or book down below, and you can read more about it. Thank you for your time.
Mine is to close off by thanking all of our listeners who have gotten to this point. We really enjoyed this space that you guys have given us, or that we created for ourselves, to share this kind of knowledge with you, and we hope that it impacts you and that you can find someone to share it with for the betterment of society. For that, and for the rest of our team in general, I would like to wish you all a goodbye.
A lively week ahead. Au revoir.